Welcome to Energetic Advantage, the podcast where energy isn't woo, it's your edge. I'm your host, Jessica Serrato, intuitive strategist, lifelong pattern decoder, lover of numbers, and energetic guide for visionary leaders. Around here, we go energy first, strategy second. Every episode will give you a perspective, a tool, or a timeline shift that helps you lead from your power. Because the truth is, your energy is your most undervalued asset until you learn how to use it. Get ready, you're about to have the advantage. Let's begin. Let me ask you something. What rules are you living by right now? And not just the obvious ones, those invisible ones, the rules that you might have about what success means, the ones about healing, the ones about what's possible for your life, rules about how long things should take, about what a good decision, whatever that is, looks like, rules about who you are allowed to become. Now I want to ask you another question. What if those rules aren't actually yours? What if they are just things that you've inherited or absorbed or agreed to somewhere along the way? And now the most important question, what would happen if you decide to rewrite them? That is exactly what today's conversation is about. Today, I'm joined by an amazing guest, Kiki, a combo practitioner and visionary mentor devoted to helping high-achieving women unplug from social conditioning, reclaim their magic, and step fully into lives of devotion, overflow, and impact. Her path is fascinating. She spent years in the medical field working inside one of the most structured systems you can imagine. And today, she helps women break out of that very system and structure that have been kind of quietly running their lives. Through combo frog medicine, energetic work, subconscious reprogramming, and deep embodiment practices, she guides women back into connection with themselves and into a life that feels far more alive. In this episode, we explore what it really means to rewrite the rules. We also talk about the myth of finding your purpose, the invisible conditioning that high-achieving women are often living under, why perfectionism might actually be a misunderstood superpower, and how quickly you can shift your reality when you stop playing by rules that were never yours to begin with. And it's so fascinating. At one point in the conversation, you're going to hear something happen in real time. I realize that I've been operating under a rule about this podcast. And within about 30 seconds, you're going to hear me rewrite it on the spot. It was so unexpected, and it was also really freaking cool. So through that, I think you're really going to be curious and help you question a few rules that you've been living by too. So if you've ever felt like maybe there's another version waiting for you on the other side of the rules you've been following or the conditions that have been placed on your life, this episode is for you. No rules. Let's dive in. Oh, I'm so excited for this conversation because you've been doing such amazing work that helps women in so many ways. And we're going to get into the big themes today. But one of the things that I most love is really your ability to help women reconnect with their bodies, their intuition, their magic. And those things, most of us were trained to override, right?
Yes.
So I'm super curious about this. And I just love to start a little bit with your story because you spent years in the medical field working as a PA, very structured, scientific. How did your path kind of start to shift towards the work you do now? Still obviously working with medicine, but in a different way.
Yeah. So it's so interesting. The thing that's coming through to start off with is like, I was the most disassociated person you could ever be before. And I know that that's so hard to imagine now, but it's so interesting to me that I have been navigating this path with the body for decades and decades. And so I was a hormone specialist physician assistant for 8 years. I worked for my dad, and I was facing my own health crises while I was in practice. So I had all kinds of hormone imbalances that were affecting my day-to-day life. And I was really, really suffering for years. And then that turned into chronic Epstein-Barr. I was literally bedridden for a week a month for an entire year. And I just got to my breaking point. I hit rock bottom and I was like, something's got to give. And I started diving into holistic health protocols because I realized Western medicine had nothing to offer me. And I really dove into those protocols and committed to getting better and to learning about my body and what worked for me and what didn't. And ultimately, it ended up creating this really beautiful relationship between myself and my body. And so next thing I know, I don't believe in anything that I'm doing in my medical practice. And yet every day I'm prescribing hormones for people to help mask their symptoms of deeper, more root cause issues. And I just knew like this couldn't last forever and it couldn't last very long. And so I just held the intention that I wasn't going to do this forever and I was going to leave eventually. And I didn't know how and I didn't know what it was going to look like. But that was really one of my first practices in leaning all the way into trust and surrender, which has been the theme of my life ever since. And so over the years, I mean, it probably took 4 or 5 years after setting that intention for the path to really unfold for me. And COVID hit, things locked down. I was living in Philadelphia at the time. Literally, like, no one was leaving their house without a mask. I was out of practice because everything I was doing was considered, what was the word that they used? It wasn't medically necessary or whatever, whatever they called it. And so I had 2 months of deep reflection to figure out like, where did I want to go with this? And that ultimately led to me moving to Arizona part-time, starting a health coaching practice. And one thing led to another. And next thing I knew, I was sitting with frog medicine in my living room with a guy that I met at a concert the month before.
This is making me laugh because it feels like you're telling the story of another person.
Right?
Because I'm sitting across from you and I didn't know you then. And
Yeah.
so I just also really feel that this speaks to the power of change and transformation. And
Yes.
it doesn't take long. So we're going to get into kind of where you are now and some of the really fun concepts that you're playing with now. But I just want everyone to anchor this in of that timeline in which all of this change and transformation occurred. So much so that I'm like, wait, who were you talking about? Did the wrong person get into my recording studio? What is happening? And it's like, wow, like timelines are not linear. And when you make the choice and the intention, transformation can happen so fast. And so I really feel that's even one of these rules that you're helping people to rewrite, which is blank takes a long time, or I need X amount of time in order to do this.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so interesting. Okay, so let's actually, if you're listening in on this episode, I really want you to right now, if you haven't already, leave all of what you thought you think you know, expectations at the door, because we're not really going to focus here on the physical body. That's a part of it. But what we're really going to do is kind of go into these deeper concepts that really help release the mind, like to give you more opportunities in the mind. Okay. So the first one is a question that I know you get asked a lot in your work. And I get asked like every day in my work, which is, Jess, help me find my purpose. What is my purpose? I can't find it. I'm lost. And I know you and I feel very similar about this, but I want everyone to hear it from you because it will land differently. Talk to us about that. Is it possible to find our purpose? Is our purpose something outside of us or something that we do? Or is it more of an energy of who we are? How do you feel about purpose right now?
So, to answer your question, how I feel about purpose is that it is absolutely an energy that we exude in everything that we do. And so, like, I fully believe you can't help but live your purpose. You're living it right now, no matter what you're doing. And it's more, I think, people are looking for direction. They're looking to be told or guided how to express their purpose, which I would say is more aligned with a mission. A mission is going to be more specific, but your purpose, when I work with women and they come into one of my masterminds or some kind of container, I ask them, what is your purpose? And they'll tell me, I don't know. And I'll say, but if you did know, what would it be? They have something every time. They have something to say. It never stops at I don't know. And so that just shows me that it's always in there. It's just you haven't been pushed to put words to this connection with a specific energy that is your unique archetype in the world.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is if you continue to look outside of yourself or change careers or change what you're doing, it feels like you're doing a lot, you're making a lot of change, but you also might feel disappointed because you still feel that purpose is elusive because you can't see it, because it's in you, it's within you.
Right.
Yeah.
What I find is most of what everyone is looking for is actually here within, in the present moment, in the now. And everyone's going, no, what am I going to be doing in 6 months? And how is that going to be connected to my purpose? How's my purpose going to tell me what I should be doing down the road? And it's no, everything is actually here, including your purpose.
And that's something that I feel is really hard to hear for most people because it goes against the rules of what society has told us. Like I laugh my background in corporate and I did a lot of recruiting and like I just cringe at some of the questions I asked people, which was like, what do you want to do in 5 years? Like we were and also these behavior-based questions of asking them about their past. When I look at those types of interviews, the rules told us we had to ask about the past and we had to ask about the future. But very rarely did we ask about the present moment? And it's because I feel that sometimes it is very hard to connect to the present moment because that's where your intuition is. So when we think about these rules, I just love your take on this. It's something that I know you're passionate about. And I think people listening, this will really change the way they live their life. Many of us are operating inside rules that we didn't consciously create. Right? It's societal rules about success, about productivity, about what healing should look like, about what a quote unquote good life is supposed to be. Yeah. And all of these rules, even if we don't know we're trying to abide by them, they are kind of affecting sometimes our decisions. So I want to start with you because I feel like this is your power and your wisdom of you figure it out for yourself. You work through your own medicine and then you share. So when did you start realizing that even after your big shift or transformation into this kind of new era that you're in, when did you start realizing that, hey, like some of these rules that I've been living with aren't actually mine?
I didn't have those words until last year. And I think that's part of the hurdle is being able to put language to what's coming up for us. And so I've been living this for years, but to actually put it into practice really started last year. And it was in the realization, I was in 3 masterminds last year. One of them was Jess's, and I was in another mastermind, Jenna Brown's, with Jess. And Jess, you witnessed me have a lot of realizations around the fact that what if everything's perfect? What if everything I'm doing has been by design? And that became my first rule that I rewrote. It was everything is happening perfectly as it's supposed to in every moment, even and especially when it doesn't feel like it. And that really created a ripple effect through my life of creating awareness around what wasn't working for me anymore. And I'll tell you, with that rule that I rewrote, what wasn't working for me was telling myself I was always doing something wrong. I found that I was always hyper vigilant about what am I doing wrong here? What could I be doing better? And that was always implying that there was something wrong with me. And that wasn't working anymore. And so I started seeing, like, I had to go through so many processes of a coach reflecting back to me, well, look at how you set it all up. It happened perfectly, even when you didn't think it was going perfectly. And I said, what if I just decided to trust that there's nothing wrong with me, that everything I'm doing is actually unfolding perfectly as I planned it? And what if I stepped back and witnessed like how that could unfold. And it blew my mind. It was better than I could have ever imagined.
I love that the way, what I'm hearing in just the way you talked is I heard a lot of what ifs. Well, what if? And this is just so important because when we start with curiosity, which is a big theme for April of 2026, that's actually where we can access the biggest and greatest expansion and transformation. We don't start with certainty. But starting with curiosity is sometimes really uncomfortable because we don't know the answer. We're literally asking, well, what if? Well, what is possible? But that is the way through. Okay, so I love that you've shared that rule that you kind of had for yourself. And I want people listening to start to connect the dots to themselves. So, what are some of the most common rules, right? These invisible rules that you tend to see women specifically living under? Either people that come to you for help or just in general, because this is the hardest part, putting language, right, to like the rules. So I'm going to ask you the hardest possible question here and expect you to answer, which is like, what are these rules? Put language to kind of what are these things that we're experiencing?
So I just pulled out my list of my rules. So I'm gonna tell you.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
So I'm like, I just happen to have them right here. Okay, this is a huge one. I think this is like the ultimate one. And it's that I find that so many women believe that either they have to wait to have something until they feel ready to deserve it, or that they have to wait to have what they want because all parts of them aren't on board yet. Maybe there are subconscious parts of them that have a little existential kink and are holding them back from getting the thing. And they have to go through this really deep, intense process to like work through whatever's holding them back and blocking them, quote unquote, from having what it is that they want. There's so many unspoken rules around women getting to have what they want. And the rule that I wrote for myself in realizing this about myself is I get to have whatever I want, no matter how parts of me feel about it now. And then if there's anything to work through, why can't I work through it while I have it?
Yes.
Like, why not?
This is so important. And if I translate it into my speak, it's like the rule of conditionality. This will happen when, or after this, I will. But we all know when we place those rules of conditionalities, and like these are literally how, this is so funny. These are literally how we create rules. Okay, these are called, oh, so funny. These are called logic rules. When we're working with any type of software, and I'm laughing, me and my Excel spreadsheets, this is literally how we write rules. When this happens, then X. If this condition is met, like we're creating logic rules. That's what they are called. And so what you're doing is really removing the logic, removing the conditionality, and making it possible without conditions. And that feels to me like unconditional living, which is so fun.
So fun.
Yeah, thanks for coming with me when I connected those dots. I was like, people listening are probably like, yeah, we know, Jess, they're called logic rules. But
I
that's so
love
funny.
it.
Okay.
So good.
Okay, so these are so good. Can you go through some of the other rules?
Yeah.
Now that I know you have a list, Kiki, I
have a whole list, and I'm constantly adding to it.
Okay.
So number 3 is nothing, not even time, can get in the way of number 2. So I get to have whatever I want, no matter how parts of me feel about it. And time can't even get in the way of that. And so something I've been really playing with my clients is the concept that time isn't real. And I think a lot of us can accept that to an extent, but when you start putting that into practice, it gets a little trickier because we're so conditioned to seeing time linearly. And so if nothing, not even time, can get in the way of whatever it is you want, then why can't you have it right now? What's stopping you? Nothing? Oh, okay. So that's been a really fun one to play with. And there's so many like branches off of this. Like, how about the fact that you don't actually have to go through a whole process to learn a lesson? You don't have to go step by step through like things going wrong, and then ultimately, eventually down the road, weeks later, things coming back together. What if you just knew the lesson and that was enough? That was it. Learned those lessons over and over and over again a million times. I know you have. So when we detach from linear time, there's like such a ripple effect that happens in life where things just happen instantaneously.
I love this. And I think it goes back to kind of that first rule. And I'm getting now that all of these rules are intertwined. But
Yes.
what this is actually telling me is like many times we say, if I don't work hard for this, I don't deserve it. Or if I don't do the work, then it's, what is that saying? No work, no reward, or something like that. That's ingrained in us, right? So I just laugh because this happens a lot in my work. When someone comes and they book an hour session, and they come in with the intention of releasing these, I love how you say quote unquote blocks, because I also do not believe in blocks. They want to work through something. And in the first 3 minutes, literally, I say something and it's already released, already done. And I'm like, okay, so what are we going to do now for the next 57 minutes? And yet they're still like, oh, but are you sure? I feel like I didn't do enough to get through this. And I was like, why? And it's so funny because you'll laugh here. I'm even thinking we might skip this segment because I had a rapid fire segment where I was telling you rules and I wanted you to rewrite them, but I think we're actually doing it now. And one of the rules that I had come up with like in the meditation was like healing takes time and this conditionality. And so this is so fascinating to me. And if we think about this, of when we can really embrace that it doesn't need to take time, or we don't need to work hard in order to be able to appreciate or deserve the thing, then we have so much more time for other things. And I'm just laughing. I always, you know me, I always bring into the most purest examples I could get, which is typically always kids, because they do not abide by any rules, pretty much.
Yeah.
And it's, wait, does ice cream taste any better or worse depending on like why you got ice cream? Like when I take my kids for ice cream just because, or when I take my kids for ice cream maybe for another reason, after a sports game or like after a report card, the ice cream tastes the same. It tastes good both times.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. I have a really interesting kind of caveat to everything you're saying too, which is if you want to work really hard to to deserve the thing, then you can. And that can be your rule because you get to write the rules. There's no one telling you what to do. So I had an experience for myself where I wrote down, okay, rule number 6 is I get paid to exist. And I automatically went into, well, then I don't have to do anything. And that was interesting because I got all caught up in, well, I shouldn't have to do anything and I should have money coming in.
Right.
And so I couldn't get my energy behind that. I couldn't believe it because I like working and sometimes I like working hard. And so I had a whole conversation with Chad about this and I had to rework, what does it mean to get paid to exist? And what it actually means for me is doing work I love that doesn't feel like work to me. And so that means I am still doing things. I'm still doing all the things that bring money through my company. And it feels like I'm getting paid to exist. And that feels really good to me.
Because impact, doing what you love, is part of your existence that you enjoy doing.
Exactly. Yeah. But hey, I believe if you can get all your energy behind I get paid to do nothing, you totally could do it.
You can write those rules. Oh my gosh. I love this. Okay, let's pick. I feel like I want to do one more rule here, and then I want to help people kind of figure out how to do this for themselves. So what's another rule that feels fun?
Okay. Where are we going to go here?
You can pick 2. There's no rules.
This is true. This is
Your own rules.
Okay, here's one connected to time, and then we're going to throw a bonus in. So I find myself saying often that the body needs time to catch up. I say it to clients, I say it to myself, And this is yet another branch of the time example. Like you can see how time just ripples through so many areas because it's so linear. I guess it would be more like even 2D, but then it's rippling into the 3D, right? But then it's not coming with us to higher dimensions. So I say often, and then I catch myself, the body needs time to catch up. And then I'm like, no, it doesn't, because time doesn't exist. So that's been a really interesting one for me because I have so much evidence of physical body knowledge
Yes.
that has been a part of my training and my studies. And so that one it's been a little harder to let go of. But that also ripples into aging. And so one of my rules is I'm aging backwards. And I really do believe that. I look better every year. I look way better now than I did 10 years ago. And there's something that I say that is so funny. And I caught myself saying that whenever I'm going through a transformational moment, which let's be real is all the freaking time, I look like off. I don't look like myself. I look weird because I'm mid-morph.
Okay.
And I'm like, so if I'm transforming all the time, then guess what? I'm going to look weird all the time. And I'm not going to look like myself all the time because lately I just feel like it's nonstop. And so what if I just kept looking better and better and better throughout every transformation instead of telling myself I look weird or I look off or I look old or whatever it is. And it's been working.
That is a huge one because this brought me back to when we first met in person, which was in Sedona. And during that time, there was a photo shoot. And I remember you had just gotten back from a transformational journey with medicine, and you had opted out of the photo shoot because of that reason. And
I did.
I'm not saying that was like the right or wrong decision or an opportunity, but how many times do we opt out of opportunities because of a rule or a belief that we have written? And what if that rule was different? And I also think this is just a beautiful example of how we can continually rewrite the rules, right?
Yeah.
You just did that, and that wasn't that long ago. And
No.
every time we engage, like, we get to rewrite the rules with the intention, I think, just to have more fun. And I know I've shared this story with you, but like this is how like my youngest, and she's so funny, she has the same numerology as you, so this cracks me up. It's like whenever we play a game, if the game is fun, she'll shift the rules to play it longer, right? So I always use that Pictionary example when, that little sand goes to the hourglass and like she isn't finished drawing yet, or we haven't guessed it yet. Does that mean it's someone else's turn? No. She literally just flips the hourglass thing over and it's like, I get more time because this is fun. And I find myself as a parent really stopping myself from saying, no, wait, that's not the rules, because I get why she's doing it. And the object of the game for us is like, in that situation, is not to win or play by the rules. It's to have fun. So I love that. And I also love something. It's just so interesting to me about it's sometimes hard to rewrite rules like when we don't have evidence of. So I want to share something that I kind of realized, and I'm actually super curious about how you do this. Because yes, I'm sure we can rewrite the rules instantaneously. But sometimes I think it's helpful to bridge the gap with bringing in evidence that's not directly correlated to the belief, but like from an other situation. So I'll give you an example, and I'm super curious about this. So I remember seeing someone on social media, I'm sure, where she said something like, or it was a post about, you can't be a good business coach if you've never run a business. And of course, everyone who has run businesses was like, yes, I agree. I've done 20 years. And so for that reason, I am the best person for this job. And something about that like really didn't sit well with me. But from a linear, logical perspective, I was like, well, I guess I could see how that makes sense. I remember like really sitting here at my desk trying to sort this out. And just then, for obviously divine timing reasons, my two kids came in and they were like, Mom. And I was like, wait, what if I took that statement and I took out the business owner thing from it. And I input the word mom. And then I repeated it. And I said, you can't be a great mom if you've never been a mom. And I was like, wait, that is absurd. No way, right? We know what, like, everyone listening is, yeah, obviously. So for me, sometimes when I'm struggling to rewrite a rule, it sometimes helps me to bring in evidence from like other areas. So I'm curious, like, what you think about that, or what helps you to rewrite the rules when our mind is struggling with evidence, I guess, of them.
So I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent that's related to that, and then I'll come back to your question. So this is making me think of, I work with high-level women who often come to me believing that they're doing a lot of things wrong in their life, much like was my experience. And so what I find is this process of permission to rewrite the rules that actually support them in their lives is very nervous system regulating for them, because they've been in this like hyper vigilant, hyper masculine state. And all they need to do is rewrite the societal conditioning and programming and brainwashing that's been put on them in order to feel like, oh my gosh, I actually know what I'm doing and kind of have my ish together. And so I've had conversations with friends who are coaches about how rewriting the rules is not going to work because someone whose nervous system can't hold the new rule, they're just going to collapse under it. And I don't find that that's the case, at least with the women that I'm working with. I actually find that this process is very supportive in regulating the nervous system. And what I've actually played with is, well, if you're telling yourself your nervous system is dysregulated all the time, then guess what? It's going
to be.
Right? And so what if you told yourself your nervous system was regulated? Even if it's not true in this moment, what's going to happen? Everything in your body is going to reorganize around the knowing, the rule. And notice I'm not saying beliefs.
Yes.
Like that has been such an important piece of this because I do limiting belief work and subconscious reprogramming, but this just feels so much more tangible and concrete, calling it a rule.
A rule. Yeah.
Right. And so just tuning into the knowing that you're already regulated. And when we let go of the belief in linear time, then guess what? It happens right now. It's been so cool to witness that unfolding.
Yeah, I love that. And I think just the way you rules brings it more physical. And I know you are a physical energy, so am I. And that brings it more into the body and out of the mind, which I also love.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So this process, it's been really interesting, not only going through it myself, but also teaching others how to do this, because there is a little bit of a learning curve.
Totally.
And it's always the things that I don't realize people are going to have trouble with that are like the kind of sticky points. But what I will say about finding evidence is I think it's actually more about coming back to the present moment, collecting evidence in the now. So these new rules that you get to write, you're trying them on for size. You don't have to commit to them forever. You get to continue rewriting them throughout your life to support you. And so what I find is I will have a moment where the first step is recognizing what's not working for you.
Yep.
Okay, this part of my life isn't working. What is the rule that is dictating my behavior within this area of my life? And sometimes it doesn't come through right away. Sometimes it's just like setting the intention to create awareness around what is the preconceived rule. Eventually it pops in and it's, oh my gosh, I can't even believe I didn't see that. It's usually so simple and so obvious. And then you get to get creative about how you want to rewrite it in the most supportive way for you. And so I just choose a way and I try it on and I go about my life. And I just set the intention to notice when it comes up again. And when it comes up again, I either get to say, okay, this new rule is really working for me. Let me like course correct every time I'm still operating in the old rule, or let me rewrite this rule to support me even better. And so every time it pops up and I have to have some awareness to do things a little differently, it's actually giving my brain evidence to say this is working or we get to do it a little differently.
Okay, I love this. And I have to do a little bit of behind the scenes right now for everybody because this is blowing my mind, but it's also like just the power of energy work. Okay, so a rule that I had up to this very moment was that I needed to prepare questions for the interviews that I was doing on podcasts. And I'm just laughing at myself because you've essentially just answered all of my questions that I had prepared without me actually having to ask the question. And part of me is, shit, do I just not ask the question now? Like, I worked so hard on that question. But like, how funny is this? That this is actually, I'm like dying, that this is actually happening in real time. And it's so funny because for those of you, you can't see me, but I do a meditation, I write the questions, and I have a script on a little bit of a teleprompter above me. And I'm literally half annoyed, half laughing as I'm just like scrolling down through my script, being like, wait, am I asking these questions? Because she's answering them. But like, this is just, oh my gosh. So essentially I'm like, scroll, scroll, scroll. We've already talked about that. We've already talked about that. But this is like so amazing. I love it so much. I like how you said how it can just happen in the blink of an eye when we're not even trying to do it. But one of the things that I want to pick up on to bring us into a slightly different concept, but it's so related, is I love how you said, just try it on. And this implies that we cannot expect that the first thing we will try on will be quote unquote perfect, right? I guarantee you when anyone goes clothes shopping, if you like, there's no such thing as perfect. Like, you're trying things on for the fun of it. Some days you try on a whole bunch of stuff and nothing quite fits. Sometimes you try things on and the first thing is that. There's different experiences of trying things on. But I think the core theme that I get from you of when someone is trying to rewrite the rules is one of the rules has to be like, there's either no such thing as perfection or like perfectionism isn't what I think it is. Because I think many of us have, if we relate at all to being a perfectionist, it typically comes with that bad reputation, right? Mm-hmm. Again, going back to my corporate days when everyone was like, what is your biggest challenge? And like literally so boring. 9 out of 10 people would be like, well, I'm a perfectionist. I'm like, oh my God, here we go again. But I think sometimes perfectionism is usually framed as like a problem that we need to overcome. But obviously there's something deeper inside of that, right? Because when we look at people who have done extraordinary things, many of them have incredibly high standards. So I do think there's a beautiful gift in perfectionism. So I'm just curious, when you feel into that, this idea of perfectionism or perfectionist or having things be perfect, where do you land with that?
Yeah, so I work with a lot of women who are self-proclaimed perfectionists, and I would consider myself to be one as well. And in this realization that like everything is actually perfect, it really like satisfied that desire for me for everything to be perfect. It was like, well, if I can actually accept that it just is, and I don't even have to try for it to be, then there was like this release of pressure within me. And you may be able to tell by listening to this podcast, but two of my rules are: 1, follow what feels fun, and 2, you can't F it up. No matter what you do, you can't F it up because everything is always perfect, right? And so what I have been shifting in my messaging that I've been getting a lot of feedback from my clients that they're loving is the energy around the word perfectionist and the concept of it being such a bad thing. I operate very much in like the spiritual world, spiritual community, which I'm sure a lot of your listeners do as well. And I think that not only in corporate, it's been deemed a bad thing, but in the spiritual world especially, it's women should be in their feminine and lay around all day and do nothing. And there's so much spiritual conditioning as well as the mainstream societal conditioning around this word. And so I know a lot of us became perfectionists out of survival, out of protection, out of childhoods that were less than ideal. And I am not discounting that in any way, shape, or form. What I do, what I consider my specialty to be, is I point out in women what their superpowers are. And the fact that you are a perfectionist is actually a really incredible, amazing thing. And it's going to support you in everything you could ever want to do in this lifetime because you have standards and you have a work ethic and you have internal motivation to make the world a better place, whether it's more beautiful or more organized or more whatever it is that you want to see in this world. I think that's amazing. I think it gets to be one of the greatest things about high level, high performing, high achieving women.
Yeah, I love that. And I know that I shared this with you, but really, when I think of perfectionism and perfect, I think of the number six because six is the birthplace of perfection. It's the first perfect number. For those math geeks out there, a perfect number is when you can add up the digits and multiply the digits and get the same. So 1 plus 2 plus 3 equals 6, and 1 times 2 times 3 equals 6. And what really hit me is when we look at nature, and bees choosing to use this perfect shape, the shape of a hexagon with 6 sides, as their hive. And the reason they choose it is because it is the most efficient shape. They build most efficiently and get the most out of it using that perfect shape. And when I think about that, there's nothing quote unquote bad about that. So I think also for me, when we look at nature, or we look at the birthplace or the origin of something, for me, it always helps. But like you said, sometimes going to the origin of where it started in you, perhaps versus the origin of where the concept came from, is super helpful. And it's interesting because I never have associated myself with being a perfectionist because I don't have those tendencies, which I think why it is maybe easier for me just to accept things as perfect. But I do know that this is like such an important one. And again, just start with curiosity. What if my tendencies to be a perfectionist weren't bad? What if they were helping me in some way? And I think if you're listening and perfectionism lands, do that. But if you're listening and it doesn't, insert another belief, insert another word, and start with a curiosity. What if this? What if that? And I think part of it is also like being willing to be a lifelong learner and to truly be open to learning about new things, which is where I kind of want to go next here, which is about the frog, which is about combo. And I'm laughing. I will share with you. I don't know if I've ever told, I think I probably shared with you a story, but when we first met, I didn't know anything about you. And I remember sitting in a circle and other people were talking and you were talking and you all were talking about this thing called combo. And I had no idea what it was. And I kept on asking myself, like, a combo of what? What are the two things that they are bringing together? I was like, and then finally I had to be like, what are these things? And I think someone else said, what do you mean things? It's one. And I was like, wait, what? So I just also think this is so funny about how when you can shift into being a learner and ask the questions, even if you feel so silly asking. So I asked the question, what is combo? First, I will tell everybody, I now know how to spell it. Kambo, Combo.
Yes.
And I just want you to chat a little bit about what it is and why it's so special and important for you. Because learning about it from my perspective has really opened my mind to many different things, not just that.
Sure. Yeah, so combo is a frog medicine. It is found in the Amazon rainforest. And it is actually the poisonous skin secretion that the combo frog makes. It's applied topically to the skin of us humans after the skin is burned with the end of a burnt incense stick and the top layer of skin is wiped off. And this gooey medicine that is full of over 35 bioactive peptides, which I know most people know what a peptide is now, such a hot topic lately, but it has over 35 of them in its skin secretion. And that is applied topically to the skin so that it can be absorbed through the lymphatic system and the bloodstream. And the combo frog actually has no known predators. And so it helps instill fearlessness within us. And it has that poisonous skin secretion actually to protect it from bacteria, fungus, things that can make it sick in the rainforest, to keep it safe and healthy and to help it live as long as possible. And so you can imagine all of these peptides in the medicine are so beneficial for so many different medical conditions, even just typical imbalances that many of us deal with, like hormone imbalances, any kind of like immune system function being off, even mental health. It's used as hunting medicine in the tribes in the Amazon. And so it helps also improve like strength, endurance, stamina. It's an amazing performance enhancement as well. It can really be used for an endless list of things that can be just a little bit off. And it helps our mind, our body, and our spirit all come back into balance. And it's so, so beautiful. But when I first experienced this medicine, I was a little bit hesitant in the beginning because I was just like, it does elicit a detox, which results in a purge. And you can purge in a lot of different ways, but the most common one is by way of vomiting. And I was just like, why would anyone sign up to do that? I don't really get it. And then I kept hearing about it, and I'm a try anything once or twice kind of girl. So I was like, all right, I guess I got to try it. And my first day sitting with it, my practitioner looks at me and says, "You're really connected to this medicine. You should really think about serving it." And I had a really challenging sit. Again, I was very disassociated at the time, not connected to my body at all. And so it was really hard for me to be completely grounded in my body with nowhere to go. And I looked at him and I laughed and I said, "There's absolutely no way." And the next day he brought me his training manual. I read it cover to cover, and it was all about the hormone balancing effects, the immune system boosting effects, the mental health benefits, all the things. And it was everything I was doing in my medical practice as a physician assistant. And I couldn't unsee it. I was like, I'm the person that's going to bring this medicine to the people that would never hear about it otherwise. And that has really been a big part of my role as a combo frog medicine practitioner.
I love this so much because it really just brings our whole conversation full circle of the willingness to rewrite the rules, to release perfectionism, to really commit to whatever. It just so happens that your medicine that you're talking about is I don't say actual medicine, is a physical medicine, although you also have virtual combo, which you're able to do this virtually without the actual physical secretion, and it works just as powerfully.
Yeah.
But it's so that thing of like you going through that, your own medicine with it, your own connection with it to bring it to the world. And I think many times we hesitate, just like you said, of no way, right? That's not like that initial moment of hesitation or perhaps, I don't say unwillingness, but just maybe surprise of no, like that wasn't what I thought I was going to do. That's not my path. But this invitation to go through and go deeper into the medicine on the other side is not your purpose. Inside is your purpose, but it brings you back to that. So I also think this is a really cool message for everybody of that medicine. Insert what that medicine is, whether that's a physical medicine or a lesson or an experience or really something that you're meant to be initiated into. By moving towards that, by being open to that, what if, right, that could be the path to sharing it? Or what if, right, there's so many, because I do feel there sometimes is that hesitation to rewrite the rules, to do all the things we talked about because of the uncertainty of what happens. So I
Yeah.
think actually that would be really helpful for people to hear. I always say, like, when you do feel resistance, you're on the right path. Because
Yeah.
if you don't feel resistance, like, who the hell cares? It's not as, I don't want to say important, but anyway. So I'm super curious about that. If people are feeling resistant to something, what is the invitation here? What could they do?
So for me, and what I have now passed on to a lot of people, is the difference between, I'm going to use the example of feeling nervous and feeling excited,
Yeah.
is a hair off, right? And so feeling resistance, like, it's so interesting because the medicine of combo has this energy. And when I get it out to serve it to someone, I feel this rush of, you could call it nervousness, you could call it resistance, but I've learned it's just the energy of combo. And so when people come in to sit with combo, they always tell me they're nervous. And I do believe it's good to have some respect for the medicine and not come in feeling really full of yourself, because you will be humbled very quickly. But I also know that some of the nerves that they're feeling is just the energy of the medicine. And so I feel like that applies to resistance. Like, the
Yeah.
feeling of resistance is just sensation. And so can you just feel that sensation and maybe not call it resistance, because calling it resistance creates a story in the mind, but feeling it with the body allows you to move through it more quickly, easily, more efficiently, more simply, and allows you to get to the other side. I have learned to let discomfort be fun, and doesn't always work, but it works a lot of the time. And so when the discomfort of resistance comes up, I know I'm onto something, and I get really curious, and I let that process be fun, even when it sucks. Both can exist. It all gets to exist. So
I
I
love
would
that.
say if you feel resistance, lean all the way in.
Love it. In the energy of me realizing that I have no rules or I can create the rules, I will not ask the typical closing question that I have prepared. I
Okay.
want to leave it open for you to feel into what we've shared today. Are there any feelings left unsaid or anything you want to share to really make this feel complete for now in this moment?
What's coming through to share is that it gets to be simple. It all gets to be so simple. And the mind wants so badly to overcomplicate. And I think one of the most fun parts of this human experience is coming back to simplicity over and over and over again. And going all the way back to the beginning on the topic of purpose, the story I've been telling a lot lately is, even before I was spiritual and I knew I was intuitively tapped in, I found myself saying the words, my purpose is love. My purpose is love. And I didn't even know what it means, what it meant. And I have only in more recent years realized I've always been living my purpose. And my purpose is love in its simplest form. And so when I was a physician assistant, I was helping people remember the love within them by helping them to feel better or to look better or to just be a better version of them. And I'm still actually doing the same exact thing in the work I'm doing now. It just looks a little differently. And so this just feels like a reminder to let it be simple. And that doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but it means you're going to spend a lot less time making it so complicated and making it so hard as a result.
Gosh, and I'm just getting this loud ping with 3 words that you just used in that, which is remembering, reclaiming, and reminding, which tells me that it has always been there. When we anything, it's not something new, it's already there. And so that's the work and why it is so simple. It's just choosing to see it, notice it, claim it, and embody it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that feels easy. If it's already here, I got nowhere to go but here, man. It feels so good.
Fine. Yeah.
So good. So good. Okay, if anybody wants to hear more from Kiki, which I know you all do, we will put her information in the show notes. And I know she would love for you to reach out. And also, I would love for anyone listening to send me any of the rules that you uncovered from today's episode, of those
Yes.
rules that you maybe discovered that you didn't know you were living by, and what you're doing or your first kind of action to rewrite them. And just using me as an example, I just rewrote a rule talking to somebody. What?
What?
So it doesn't have to be this long, drawn out process. It can be as simple, just like Kiki said, as choosing. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your medicine with us. Please connect with Kiki. She is amazing. And I hope you enjoyed today, and let us know about those rules. And I actually will share some of mine too on social. So be ready for that. I'm inspired now.
I love it.
Okay, see you next time, everybody. Thanks for being here inside the Energetic Advantage. If today's episode opened something for you, share it, tag it, or send it to the person who popped into your mind. And remember, energy first, strategy second. Your advantage has always been in you. Now it's time to lead with it. See you next time.